Bruschetta Podcast. Bruschetta Podcast. E dai, amici, si dice Bruschetta Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, Loris Castilla.
Ciao Sam, grazie per
up?
avermi invitato.
Come stai, man?
Everything's good. I'm already set to English.
You're already set to English. You want to talk in English?
We said that we were gonna do this in English, so even coming here, I was already started to think in English to prepare for the
For
recording.
the actual interview, yeah. Ok, so we're gonna tell that to the audience. Questa puntata sarà interamente in inglese perché sia io che Loris ci occupiamo di lingua inglese, lui lo fa in una maniera molto innovativa e vedremo attraverso la sua storia, attraverso quello che fa, di capire, di entrare nel suo mondo e capire come effettivamente lui insegna inglese anche attraverso i suoi canali social. So I think we can definitely start. And so tell us about your story, tell us about the melange of things that you do in music, TV series, English language, just, the stage is yours.
Okay, great. So, first of all, I think that to learn English, you need to be motivated. You need to have a goal.
Right.
And when I started, my goal was to become a better songwriter. I didn't know English that well. Actually, I chose to attend a school that didn't have much English, so I started to become a surveyor, I believe it's called.
Yeah.
And we didn't study a lot of English, and it wasn't really a big part of my life. But I wanted to write music, and I was getting better at playing instruments, and I was starting my band. And I was thinking that the thing that I was missing to be a good musician, singer, songwriter was the English knowledge, because I
Right.
wanted to write lyrics that made sense and that they were cool. They had double meanings and things like that. So I thought that I needed to get better, because writing in Italian and translating into English didn't work. You didn't have the rhymes and you didn't have the double meanings, or you couldn't write something really deep in that case. So I started to try to get better by watching TV shows, because I was already watching TV shows, and I thought, why not watching them in English and try to get into the English language a little bit. And everything started from there, because I started enjoying the TV shows a lot more when watching them in the original language, and I started learning a lot of new things, and that was the way that I used to learn the language. To be honest, I don't know a lot about grammar.
Right.
If I hear a sentence and there's a grammar mistake in it, I don't notice it because I studied the form of the sentence. Just because I can hear it, I can hear that it sounds wrong.
Right.
It
Because you
happens
studied the
in
languages
tongue.
like chunks. You did
Yeah.
study the grammar, and then, you put the grammar into practice and introduced it in the sentences. You just knew the language in chunks. So you studied portion of language that you acquired through TV series and stuff like that, and you directly applied it to your own language experience. And that's something that's, a way to learn the language that it's really useful. Absolutely.
Yeah, it worked for me, and I don't want to say that people shouldn't study grammar. I just want to say that this method worked for me because it felt like I wasn't studying. I was just enjoying watching a TV show. And then it was maybe it's also connected to music, because it was more of a musical way to learn English, because of the way the words sounded and the way the sentences sounded in my head. That would make me understand if something was correct or wrong. Maybe I heard a sentence so many times in a TV show that I would find it easy to repeat it, the way you learn Italian as a kid.
Right.
You don't first you learn the language because you repeat what your parents are saying, and then you go to school and you realize why those sentences work like that. That was kind of my experience. Now I can understand grammar a little bit. It's just that it's not the place I started from.
Yeah. So you started as a behaviorist in a sense.
Yeah.
You started by repeating what older, more experienced people were doing, basically, because you were quite young, and to listen to TV series talking. So usually what you have in TV series is adult actors playing a role, playing fiction, right? And so that's what happened in your case. You emulated experienced speaker of the language, which was a big advantage because, of course, you didn't have, native parents, right? Native speakers of English in your family and among your family members. So you kind of decided to have that, let's say, example, right? Thanks to TV series. So that's really smart of you. And then what you did is actually understand how the language worked from a structural point of view through school. That's interesting. To at least realize what you were doing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, another thing is that I think this method didn't mess with my motivation, because I can see this as an example could be when I started playing guitar. I took lessons from a teacher, and he was really focused on theory, and I was just a kid that wanted to play guitar, and he would teach me like music theory and scales and stuff like that. And I was getting so bored, and I was like, if this is playing guitar, I don't want to do it. I just want to play the songs that I like. And then I found another teacher that would make me play the songs, and then in that moment I started learning. And with English, I think it's the same. Like I wanted to start listening to it and using it instead of studying the grammar. That would have made me so bored.
Yeah.
And that's another reason why it worked for me, because I didn't get bored.
Yeah. Yeah, because one of the reasons people don't like English is that the focus is on the wrong skills. So I do believe that speaking a correct way is important, but it has to be functional to the communication. Because if you don't pronounce an S in the third person singular, it doesn't mean that your message is not going to come across.
Yeah.
So when your message doesn't come across because of a grammatical mistake, then that's a problem. And that's when, grammar kicks in, and the knowledge of grammar has to be important in some ways. But when it's just, something that you forget, a one-off mistake, it doesn't really matter, I believe.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I do believe that motivation plays a fundamental role in learning a language, because it's like when you give decisional power to a student, for example, you make him or her participate into the decisional process of what you're going to do in class, which means that you're going to give him or her a piece of decision that he can use to accommodate his or her preferences, inclinations, and stuff like that. So he or she feels motivated. And that's the same thing. If you like something, then you're motivated to do it. And you decide to do it. And whereas if you just impose grammatical rules to a person, that's not going to work. You lose motivations and you lose the willingness to learn English, and then people start hating the language. You know how many times that happened to me? Desperate people calling and say, hey, Sam, I want to really get back to loving English in a way, and because other people made me hate it. And that was bad to hear, and then that's why I started doing what I do. And I think that's why also you started doing what you do, is to get that motivation back in the eyes and in the minds of the people that start studying English,
Yeah, it should be fun at the end of the day. Like, even a lot of people, they worry about their pronunciation, so they are scared about talking. And I think that's a misconception. Like, I don't think people are gonna make fun of you if you don't have the perfect accent. Like I don't have a good accent. You can totally tell that I'm Italian.
No,
but
I actually think you have a good accent.
Thank you.
I like that.
But that's not gonna stop me from trying to talk, trying to speak, because that's the only way that my accent is gonna get better. So
Yeah.
you should do it.
Exactly. And also it depends on whose point of view your accent is bad. Because if you look at research that has been done on European accent and more specifically Italian accent, and I said this in recent interviews as well, Italian accent is considered to be hot, and sexy. So it's good. And people love it when we have the Italian cadency and the Italian intonations. People like it because it's identity. It's a matter of identity.
Yeah.
And Italians, around the world, well, they like us, so it's good.
Yeah, we shouldn't hide our origins.
No, absolutely. And so I don't want to come across as a hypocrite because people look at me and they hear me speak and they're like, hey, you say all these things about Italian accent, but you don't sound Italian. And I mean, yeah, okay, but that was a different version of me back in the days who was too much focused on pronunciation. And that's why I paid so much attention to pronunciation that I managed to camouflage my origins. But at the end of the day, was it worth it? Probably yes, because I'm a maniac of sounds and phonetics in general. Was it necessary? No. So it depends if you want to go deeper into the language and then you study so hard that you love the language as a whole, that you're a linguist, basically, that you love it and then you want to do that.
Yeah, that's what you like, so...
Exactly. But if you use it as a mean of communication, as it should be, then, you're good to go, as long as you can speak. That's a nice input, man. Thank you. Appreciate that.
No worries.
My next question for you is related to TV series.
Yeah.
So why do you think TV series are so effective to learn English? I mean, we are in front of us a living proof that TV series can actually be that effective. But why TV series in particular?
Yeah, first of all, I also think a lot about that, the fact that I am a living proof that that method works, at least on some of us. And that's something I always try to tell to the people that follow me, that I'm just one of them. Like, I started watching TV shows, I didn't know English, I only studied in high school. 2 years in high school, and that's it. So everybody can do it, I think. And TV shows, because I think, I don't know, for me, they were a fun thing to do with my free time, and they became something useful as well. Like, I didn't feel like watching a TV show was wasting time, because sometimes I feel that kind of sensation when I'm doing something that is not work-related or useful per se, and I feel guilty. I'm wasting time. So I put myself in a position where that time wasn't wasted, was like a time that I would enjoy, but at the same time, I would learn something.
Yeah.
So...
edutainment.
Yeah.
At its finest.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons. But also, I think that you could learn how people actually speak. Like, maybe in class or on a book, you could learn a lot about theory and how things are supposed to be. But the way that people speak, it's a little bit different. Like, they use different expressions that maybe you wouldn't think about. And also, you could hear the intonation of the sentences when they want to stress a part of the sentence or another, and you can learn that as well, all in one place, like the TV show. The only thing that's missing from learning English this way is the exercise of speaking. But all the other aspects, like listening, vocabulary, and reading, because I always use subtitles in English, and I don't know what else, but all the other aspects are included in this method.
Yeah, what's the one left out? Speaking, you said?
Speaking, yeah.
And that's not even entirely true if you think about it, because there are strategies that could, through the use of TV series, make you improve your speaking skills by emulating the characters of the film. So if you think about the shadowing techniques, which I've written an article about, basically you are the shadow of the character that you're following and that you are watching. And so if you select a small piece of content, like 5 minutes, that is characterized by a monologue of one person talking, and you try to emulate that person as closely as possible, as accurately as possible, and right behind them. So you're literally following the sounds without caring too much about the content, about the meaning, etc., but just focusing on sounds and stuff. You're actually speaking. And so, of course, you're not having a conversation. It's just repetition. But speaking is you opening your mouth and pronouncing sounds. So I believe that's also something you can do.
Yeah, that's probably something I did unconsciously.
Yeah.
Because I remember watching an episode, and then maybe during the rest of the day, I would find myself thinking about a particular scene and replaying it in my head.
Yeah.
And that's something that probably improved my speaking without me actually knowing it.
Knowing it, yeah. Wow, that's interesting. And what about, this might sound like a cliche question, and I don't want to generalize nor diminish the quality of the question, because other guests told me I'm fairly good at asking questions. So
Yeah,
I don't
you're
want
a
to
great
ask
host.
you. Thank you. But I don't want to ask you a too simple general question. But what is, in your opinion, the more complete, the best, if you will, TV series to actually learn English? I know that there are several kinds of students, and because you said that motivation plays a role, of course, the best TV series should be the one that people like.
That
So it's
was
really
going to be my
personal.
question, my answer. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't want to anticipate your answer. But I also believe that some TV series have different jargons in a sense. So there are really TV series that focus on one specific section of the language, if you will, like jargons, or if you want to be more technical about, if we want to be more technical about it, semantic field, that's what it's called. So what do you think is maybe, I don't know, the ideal TV series that people could watch, or several TV series that people could watch according to what they want to achieve? Okay, sorry, I didn't want to be banal, so I...
No, it's great. You're right. This is one question that I get asked a lot. And usually my answer is go with the TV show that you're interested about.
Yeah.
That you're interested in, because that's the one that it's not going to get you bored. It shouldn't be something that you already watched, or something that you watched in Italian and you want to watch and then you want to watch it in English now. Just something that you literally can't wait to watch and see how it ends or how it plays out. Okay. That's what helped me. And of course, there are TV shows that are great for certain areas of the language. Like I can think about Friends. It's great because it's about friends and they're talking about their lives, and it's something, I mean, from that you can learn the kind of conversation that you could have with your friends.
Yeah, like real life language, literally, like a portrayal of random people knowing each other and meeting and have meaningful or rather superficial conversations. It depends.
Exactly, but you need them. And also things that happen every day in your daily life, on a daily basis, something like that. Or even like I can even say that, like a TV show like Modern Family, for example, I think it could be a great heir to heir. How do you say heir? Like erede, without the H. Heir.
Heir.
Okay.
Like it's a homophone with aria. Heir.
Okay.
It's the same.
Yeah, because you have a H, but you don't pronounce it in that case.
No, you don't. Okay. It's one of the 5 words that you don't pronounce the H of. Yeah.
The others, like hour.
Yeah.
Honest.
Yeah.
And I don't know what else.
Then honor.
Honor.
And also osla, which is stagliere. But that has like it's a bit tricky there because you have two different kinds of spellings for the same word, which is kind of rare. But you sometimes find it with the H, and you sometimes find it without the H.
Okay.
So in linguistics, we will call it relitto grafico, which is basically a letter that remained there. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. But the pronunciation, of course, is the one without
the H.
So you have the H as a relitto grafico, which I don't know what's called in English, but basically you have that. And sometimes you don't have the H because some people kept it and some people didn't. And so you sometimes have it, sometimes don't, but the sound, you definitely don't.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Always learning. I like that.
Yeah.
And so I was saying, Modern Family could be a great erede to Friends because I think it's similar in some ways, but it's more modern. Like it's like Friends came out in the 90s and Modern Family is more recent. So you can have an updated version of the language, like even including social media language, including like recent technology stuff that during Friends you didn't have. And so those two are really good in my opinion. Also, if you want to like experiment with other TV shows and maybe try something in British English or something like that. Actually, I started with watching Breaking Bad.
Right.
And I didn't know, I don't think it was the best decision to start with.
Okay.
The best TV show to start with.
Why so?
Because it's not easy, probably. I remember not understanding anything and I had to, it took me something like 2 hours or something like that to watch an episode because I would stop every sentence and try to understand and look up online on the internet the meaning of things, of words. There were a lot of expressions, like even gang kind of
ghetto things.
Yeah, something like that. But when I got to the end of it, to the end of the TV show, I was super happy with the effect that it had on me. I was thinking, wow, I can understand like some part of conversations. I can understand the scenes, what's happening. I remember words that I kept on saying, I kept on hearing on the show. And then I said to myself, okay, let's start another one.
Yeah.
Now that I know English, I thought I knew English.
Yeah.
And I started Game of Thrones.
Oh my God.
And I was like, what is this? Like, I cannot understand a word.
Totally different, because also the accent changes there. Because,
it was British.
Yeah, it was British with
But
also
old.
Viking.
Yeah, like old English with British accent. And even the sentences or the topics they were talking about, it was completely different.
Yeah.
And I couldn't understand a word. And I was like, oh my God, am I gonna have to restart from zero every time I start a new TV show? And then I understood that it was a different accent and a different, like a TV show that took place in a different time. Even though it's a fantasy kind of TV show, but it's like medieval kind of situation. So you could hear a completely different vocabulary and even the way people talk to each other.
Right.
It's completely different.
Yeah.
So that was like watching two opposite type of TV shows, but that was useful because when I finished Game of Thrones as well, I was like, I had a more complete understanding of the language. It didn't matter if it was American accent or British accent. Right. I could pretty much understand both accents.
Right. I have two questions for you. Because first, at the very beginning, you said you need to watch the TV series that you absolutely can't wait watching. Like, I want to watch that. I want to finish that. So do you recommend, like, is it good to watch a TV series that you've already watched, maybe in Italian, because maybe you have some memories of it, and so maybe you already know the content of it, you know? And so might this be one of the criteria that you take into account to decide your TV series, after the motivation, after the preference, of course, which I understood are the main ones, right? So maybe something that you've already watched or that you've watched in Italian. Might this be a good choice, or is it irrelevant?
Yeah, I was thinking that maybe it could be a downside if you think about it. Like, you already know what's going to happen. So, because you already watched it in Italian, so you get a little more,
Bored?
yeah, bored because you already know how it plays out. But also you can get lazy and you're not gonna stop and trying to understand because you already know it. And maybe a good choice would be to watch a TV show that you never watched before in your life.
Yeah.
And but that you really you really want to watch. You're
Yeah.
curious about it. You're intrigued, and watch that, and then you have to understand what's going on, because if you don't understand, you lose part of the plot, and you cannot follow the TV show. So maybe that's a good way to put yourself in a position that it's uncomfortable in order to force yourself to do the work.
I've never thought about this. That's actually interesting, because it all plays out. It's like a full circle moment,
Yeah.
as we were talking about before the episode, You were very happy with how the results of you watching Game of Thrones and Breaking Bad played out, because they were actually very hard. You've never listened to them. You've never watched them before.
Yeah.
And you had never watched them before, and now that you actually watched them, you felt like, oh my God, I know this, So you were passionate about those TV series. You chose them without thinking about, oh, have I actually already watched it in Italian or what? No, you just were genuinely curious about the plot, and so you started. And you were out of your comfort zone because they were difficult. And so that's why you kind of learned the language. And so you were intrigued by understanding it. So if you really need to be passionate, in order to be really passionate, you really need to love the language. But if you, the language and the TV series, but especially the TV series. And so, but if you've already watched it, then you don't have that kind of, anger to watch, the eagerness to kind of go there and watch a TV series and complete it and to understand it. So that's actually really interesting.
Yeah.
I've never thought of that. That's
Yeah,
good.
probably me neither. Like, I'm realizing it now, talking
good.
about it with you. Yeah, but that's probably one of the reasons why it was so useful.
Yeah.
And it worked.
I'm going to ask you another question that you probably get asked a lot. Subtitles or no subtitles?
Oh, absolutely. Subtitles on all the time in English.
Okay.
Like, I don't think it's useful to watch a TV show in English with Italian subtitles.
Ever?
I don't know. I never did it, but
Okay.
if I think about it, I don't find it useful, because if you have the subtitles in English, you can learn how a word is written and how it's pronounced at the same time. And you can, like, if I would listen to a TV show, if I would watch a TV show in English without subtitles, without knowing the language, I wouldn't understand where a word would start and when a word would stop and when another word would start. So I needed the subtitles to divide what I'm hearing into words. And
Like the morphology.
Yeah.
That's a great point that you touched there, because English is like, the morphological boundaries of English are fuzzy, which means that because they connect everything, they have a lot of
you hear
speaking
just
processes that, don't make you understand when a word finishes and when a word starts. And that's why that's exactly the reason, because the morphology is fuzzy. The morphological boundaries of the language are fuzzy. So if you actually put the subtitles in English directly, you would know when a word ends and when a word starts. A lot of inputs.
Yeah, I think that's really important, because you hear somebody in a TV show
Right.
speaking, and you could hear like I imagine it in my head like an audio wave.
Yeah.
And you don't know where the cuts are.
Oh, yeah.
And if you put the subtitles, you have it divided into words. And I think you can learn from that. And also, you can see how a word is written. And if you don't know the meaning of it, you can easily type it into a website that would tell you the meaning of it. So by typing it, you also write it, and you memorize how to write it.
Okay.
So you learn so many things with this method with the subtitles in English. I still keep them on to this day because I'm still learning. So if I encounter a new word, I need to read it. Sometimes I don't look at the subtitles, I don't read them, but when I hear a word that I never heard before, I just glance at the subtitles and I'm like, okay, new word. Let me search online what it means. I don't know. I want to know what is it.
I think that's one of the reasons why, as English teachers, decided to actually specialize in this language, because it's a never-ending learning journey, a never-ending language, because there are so many things to learn. And every time you watch a TV series, you can learn a different accent, you can learn different words that are specific to the linguistic repertoire with that particular language or the particular variety of the language. And it's so diversified internally and externally that you don't know where to start, basically. So interesting. It's a never-ending learning journey, as I said. I think that's no other way to put it.
Yeah, as we were saying before starting the interview, when I started my page, my profile online, I thought maybe I'm gonna run out of idioms, I'm gonna run out of expressions to explain.
Yeah.
But it's been more than 1 year and I have a super long list of ideas for new videos. So I'm like, maybe that's never gonna happen. You're never gonna run out of expressions.
Well, if you think about the fact that other people that do the same, I mean, me personally, I've been doing this for 2.5 years now. I haven't run out of expressions yet, or ideas in general, because the language keeps evolving, and so it's gratifying as well, and so relieving that you're never going to run out of ideas. That's a fact, because by the time you cover all the words, all the expressions, all the idioms of a standard language, and you have all the things, all those things that you missed out from other varieties, and all the new words that are coming as a result of the evolution of the human race and technology and everything. And
especially on social media, you find new expressions every day. I have social media in English and I get a lot of English content as well, because I write in English and I follow people that use English, that are English or American. So when I read the comments, I find new expressions every day, and it's funny because those expressions are so new that I cannot find them on TV shows, but I find them on social media, and it's difficult to explain those expressions with my format because they're not into the vocabulary that in a way that they're already used on TV.
Because TV series have to catch up with the innovations. It's crazy.
So if you stay on social media and you pay attention to the comments and the new ways, the new expressions, you can be up to date with the language.
Yeah, exactly. And also some words now have different meanings because by using them in social media, those words acquired a completely different meaning that is specific to the medium that we're using. For example, I'm thinking about the word glazing, that would mean to put glaze on top of things. For example, a dough. Is it dough or dough? I can't remember. But yeah, basically those eaten by Homer Simpson.
I would call them, how do you call them? Donuts.
Donuts, yeah. I don't know. Yeah, it's true. It's true. You call it donuts.
Maybe it's a British thing. I don't know.
No, it's basically that. The dough is actually the the impasto,
Yeah.
as you call it, and then donut.
the same for pizza.
Yeah, makes sense. So it's not dough, it's dough. Yeah, dough and donut is actually the ciambella, right? That's actually interesting. But now, the glazing expression now means to actually overpraise somebody when it's
Okay.
done something good.
Yeah, putting glass on top.
Yeah, exactly. You're literally ass licking that person in
Yeah.
a sense.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah?
I like.
Pardon my French.
No, I explained the same thing in one of my videos. It was how to say lecchino.
Yeah,
It was brown noser. or
brown
something.
noser as
Yeah,
well.
I love that.
There are thousands of expressions, yeah? Ass licker, brown noser. There were others as well. I also made an entire video about the different ways to say lecchino in English. I can't think of all of them right now. But yeah, there were several ways
Yeah.
of saying that. Okay, great. Now, I would say we could get down to a more practical approach and teach
Let's do
people
it.
some expressions that you found in some of your TV series. So, what expressions do you have for us?
So
I think the
let me-
audience
let me-
understood what we're talking about. It's quiz time, fellas. And this time, the quiz is going to be directed by Loris, our guest. So let's see what he's got in store for us.
I had to write down.
Okay.
I had to write them down because I couldn't remember them
The
by
options.
heart. So, first expression is go south, che in italiano possiamo dire che significa andare a sud.
Ok, letteralmente andare a sud.
Ma l'espressione in inglese cosa può voler dire? Diamo 4 opzioni, giusto?
Yeah, 4 opzioni.
Allora, go south, tipo vai all'inferno, vai al diavolo. Questa è
Ok.
la prima opzione.
Opzione A.
Oppure to go south vuol dire perdersi. I was going around and then I went south.
Ok.
I couldn't find my way. Mi sono
Perdersi.
perso.
Opzione B.
Oppure opzione C, peggiorare, andare male, quando le cose peggiorano. When things go south.
Ok.
Questa è l'opzione C. D, stimolare le parti intime del proprio partner.
Ok.
Quindi to go south on somebody.
Ok. To go south on somebody, because
Like tonight I'm gonna go south on you, baby. Something like that.
yeah, I like that. Today I'm yeah,
So,
okay.
what do you think is the correct answer?
Okay, you want to repeat it real quick?
So,
A.
vai all'inferno.
Okay.
B, perdersi. C, quando le cose peggiorano, vanno male. D, stimolare le parti intime del proprio partner.
Ok. 5 secondi. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What was the right one, mate?
The right answer is C, peggiorare, andare male. When things go south. I wasn't well organized, so everything went south. My
Yeah.
plan didn't work out. Something like that.
Yeah. I took different projects on board, but way too many, so things went south at the
Yeah.
end.
Something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah, that's
Really
the
good.
correct one.
Okay.
But the fourth one was funny.
Yeah, it was really funny.
I wish it would have meant that.
Yeah, it was very, let's say, visual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, to say that, the right expression is to go down on somebody.
To go down on somebody, yeah.
Pretty similar.
Yeah. And do we have another one?
Yeah. Let's do
Okay.
the other one right away.
Yeah, let's do 2 in a row, guys. Today, bis. How do you say bis in English? Do you know that?
Like
No idea.
encore. No, I'm thinking about the concert.
Okay.
Like if you play an encore,
Uh-huh.
it's what we in Italian we say bis.
Mm,
Però bis tipo voglio il bis di pasta.
exactly.
I don't know.
I don't know if there's an expression. Maybe
should-
they say, I want some more, or I want another one. So it's a more literal way to say that. If you know that, please
Comment.
write that down in the comments below. Cheers.
I'm just gonna drink a little bit before.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm just going to do that too. I'm actually very thirsty. Right.
All right, so the second expression is one trick pony. I don't think it's useful to translate this literally in Italian,
Right.
but the 4 options are A, essere bravi solo a fare una cosa. So I'm a one-trick pony, I can only do one thing, or
Right.
something like that. B, essere degli imbroglioni. You're just a one-trick pony. You always, I don't know,
Lie.
you lie, you're deceiving, I don't know. Oppure C, essere un cavallo pazzo. So you're a one-trick pony. Yeah, I cannot, I don't know, I can't tell what your next move is gonna be. You're a one-trick pony. I cannot predict you. And D, farsi la coda ai capelli. So to do a one-trick pony, mettersi I capelli in una coda.
Right. Okay. Which one's
What's it
going to
gonna
be? Maybe let's repeat them
Yeah.
one more time very
So-
quickly. A.
A, essere bravi solo a fare una cosa. B, essere degli imbroglioni. C, essere un cavallo pazzo. D, farsi la coda ai capelli.
Okay. We got 5 seconds.
Yeah.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
The right answer is the first one, the A, essere bravi solo a fare una cosa.
Yeah.
Like, for example, I don't know, my band and we can play rock music, metal music, electronic music. We're not just a one-trick pony. Something
I
like
love
that.
that. Yeah. Yeah. When you know how to do multiple things, you're versatile. Yeah. There's a funny, and this is like a multi-language intervention that I'm doing here. So we have an expression in Spanish, which is superdotado, which is kind of ambiguous if you think about it. Because if you think about superdotado, I mean, yeah, we all
Yeah,
know
I can only
what we're
hear one
talking
thing,
about.
yeah.
Okay, but it actually means to be good at knowing multiple things. So that's actually the opposite of one-trick pony.
Okay.
Right, in Spanish. I think in English you might say you're multitasking or versatile.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's really something. I love one-trick pony as an expression.
Yeah, it's
I
nice.
actually found out the meaning today, thanks to
Oh,
you.
really?
So
Great.
that was,
Awesome.
of course, that's one of the things that I wanted to talk to you. Once you know a lot of expressions, right? You kind of start to know them, even though you hear them for the first time.
Yeah.
So you remember when you and I talked today before this interview, and I was like, what expressions are we going to tell them? Are we going to tell the audience? And you said one trick pony. And I said, oh, does that mean, you know,
Yeah,
right?
you're able to guess.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're never going to be able to guess because
course.
some of them are just, they don't make sense.
Yeah, yeah.
But usually, most of the times, when you're already experienced, you
Right.
can guess
Okay.
the real meaning.
Yeah.
And also, as we were talking about before, maybe you're not going to use these expressions
Right.
every day.
Right.
Like, it's going to happen sometimes, but it's difficult to keep them all in your head.
Of course.
But the good thing is that when you're gonna hear them from a native speaker or in a TV show, you're gonna remember what they mean, and you're not gonna miss out on the meaning.
Yeah.
You're gonna understand them right away because you remember them. So sometimes, maybe under my videos, some people, they would say, why would I use this expression if I can say it in this way more simpler way?
Yeah.
You're not gonna, I mean, you don't have to use it, but at least you know what it means when you
Yeah.
hear it.
Maybe it happens. Maybe you're watching a TV series or you hear a native speaker talking to you using one of those expressions, and usually native speakers, they don't really put themselves in the shoes of the speaker that they have in front of them, and so they keep using these expressions that are not understandable to the vast majority of the people they talk to.
Exactly.
And yeah, it's
Also-
good to know them.
There's another reason why TV shows are good for this, for learning English, because if you think about it, when they write a TV show, they don't write it for an Italian audience.
Yeah,
they
true.
write it for an English audience. So
Right.
they don't think about, we're gonna have to make this dialogue understandable.
Yeah.
Just think we're gonna have to make it funny or interesting or, I don't know, I don't know, serious, or I don't know what I have in mind for the scene. So then you have to really put yourself in a position in which you have to, like,
Understand it.
yeah, you have to
Yeah.
understand it. It's nobody is helping you.
Yeah, grasp the
And-
meaning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why another reason why I think it's useful. And another thing I would like to touch on is that a lot of people on my profile, they always make this huge division, if you say that, between
Yeah.
the expression that an American person would use and the expression that an English person would use.
Yeah,
And
British.
a British person.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's that important. Like when I learn an expression, I don't find myself asking this question, like, would I use it in America or would I use it in England?
Right.
I don't really care. I want to know what it means.
Yeah.
I think that with the TV shows, the TV in general, the two ways of speaking English, they're kind of melting.
Merge. Yeah.
Merging.
You now have TV series. I actually wrote an article about this. You know, you have TV series in different accents now. If you think about the Artful Dodger, you know, it's a mixture of Australian actors and British actors. So you have a lot of Australian there. If you think about Mary, Queen of Scots, you have Margot Robbie, who's Australian, but of course she's playing the Queen of England. And so she's got this very thick British accent. But then you have Saoirse Ronan, that she's Irish, but she's playing a Scottish character. And so she speaks in a very Scottish way. And there are a lot of characters that are actually from Scotland, and they speak Scottish. And so you have different accent and different varieties of English now in the cinema industry too. It's not just Hollywood in America, you know, it's also different varieties of English in different parts of the world.
And it's not like American people, they're not gonna watch those TV shows.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
It's not like American people don't know anything about Peaky Blinders, for example.
Yeah.
They obviously watched it, so it's not they don't know what mate means or something like. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm talking about more the expressions that a British person would
Yeah.
use, not the actual accent.
Yeah.
Like, I'm knackered. Yeah, it's something that a British person would say, but it's not like
Yeah.
American people have no idea what it means. Like,
Yeah.
they know it, they just don't use it. So I don't think you should, I don't know, limit yourself and say, I just want to learn things, American things. I don't care about, or the opposite. Just learn the language.
I'm going to give you another point of view on that one. Yeah, I was talking about accent because, of course, if you speak in that particular accent, it's more likely that you're going to have expressions belonging to that particular variety of English. And one other thing I wanted to say is that people asking that question, it might as well be out of curiosity. What do I mean by that? I mean that sociolinguistically, it's actually interesting to know which expressions come from which country. Why? Because if you go on holiday to the US, for example, if you want to know the expressions that are more typical in the US. And so sociolinguistically speaking, so you can adjust your way of speaking and you can select different weapons that you have within your articulatory repertoire and linguistic repertoire, and you can use them at your advantage when you go to a certain place. So I think that, of course, not all people are nerds like me, but I would be interested in knowing that, not because I want to limit myself to a certain accent, but because I want to have the power to use certain expressions in different contexts, which is fairly different. Because if you think about the final goal of language being communication, and you go, for example, to the US and you use an English expressions that people are not going to understand, a British expression, then the communication is at stake. So what happens when you know sociolinguistically what expression is used where, then you have more power over language and over communication in general. So I think that's fascinating as well.
Yeah. Maybe that's another perspective. That's another point of view. I was worrying more about the fact that people starting out, like when they're starting to learn the language,
Right.
maybe they're limiting themselves and be like, I wanna like, I'm just starting, so I'm just gonna focus on one thing, one accent at a time. I just wanna say, just learn more things you can, like as many things as you can,
Yeah.
and don't really focus on that at the beginning. And maybe when you get more experienced, maybe you can start like being more curious. And
No, that's so unrealistic if you think about it, especially with the role of English in the 21st century. I mean, how the hell are you going to pick one variety of English?
Yeah.
And why the hell would you pick a variety of English if, you know, in an international context, people, you know, are based on their experiences, they're going to have a certain accent and a certain linguistic repertoire. It might easily be that they went to India for
Yeah.
5 years and they, you know, went to Nigeria for a while and they have this kind of Indian Nigerian accent with all these expressions. And what do you do with your American or British English? You shove it up your whatever, you know. But yeah, that's what I mean.
yeah, I'm totally fine with people wanting to know the origin of an expression. It's more like I was more referring to the people that would comment, but that's not English, that's American.
Yeah.
That kind
Yeah.
of comments, they I don't know, they trigger me.
Yeah, but also linguistically speaking, that's wrong as a comment. As a from a linguistic point of view, it's still English.
Yeah.
It's just that it's British English and American English. You might say that maybe people living in England are called English and people living in the US are called Americans. So that's the only difference between English and American that you can make. Otherwise, linguistically speaking, you have to refer to the languages as
English.
American English and British English, which are still two kinds of Englishes, but that's still English. I don't care that one originated from the other.
Yeah, I
There's
don't know
still
why
two
would you
varieties of the language.
focus on that when you're just trying to learn.
Exactly.
That's my point.
Okay, I think we deserved bruschetta now. Bruschetta.
The time has come.
Not to offend Italians. So what I usually do is I make the guest prepare the bruschetta
Oh, I'm gonna make
for
a mess.
himself in your
Okay.
case. But yeah.
I'm gonna pick this one.
Yeah.
Oh, this is complicated.
Nah, that's gonna be fine. You got the tissue right below you.
Okay, that's,
Yeah.
that'll do.
That'll do? Okay. That'll do means questo andrà bene.
Sì,
This
basta così.
portion. I actually
Può
broke
bastare.
this one. I actually broke, so I'm gonna get this one. And I'm definitely. Is it good?
Yeah.
Cheers, man.
I'm sorry, I didn't
Cheers,
wait for
fellas.
you.
No, it's fine. Welcome back. Welcome back, Loris. How are you?
Yeah, better.
Full?
Yeah.
That's great. That's great. We ate them all. We ate them all. That was actually good. And let's get back on track with another fragment, a very important fragment of your story, of your learning, English learning path, English learning journey, which is music, or at least which has to do with music. I've got a question for you. So one of the things I always say to the people that follow me on social media is that once you start understanding the songs in English and listening to them, knowing exactly what the word means, what the words mean, you become a definitely sadder person.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, you definitely become a sadder person. And I want to know something. So you're really passionate about music. You've got your own bands and you're also a songwriter. So what I want to understand is that is if you actually started learning English to understand the texts of a song or to learn how to write in English so that you could write songs in English, or the other way around?
I think I started because I wanted to write, and because I used to like read lyrics, and I could more or less understand what they meant, but
Right.
I wasn't able to like come up with my own lyrics, at least not in a way that was musical, or I didn't want to write in Italian and then translate them in English. I just wanted to write in English. Like I didn't want like a middleman
The middleman.
between
I was gonna say
the
that.
inspiration and message. I didn't want for it to like have too many steps. I just wanted to go right into the words. With
Also
my
because it
expressions.
becomes some sort of adaptation then, right?
Yeah.
Because if you think something in Italian, then the adaptation in English is totally different. So it might easily be that what you had in mind at the very beginning changes in meaning, in intentions, in language.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's so interesting.
I'm thinking that when I write a song, sometimes I usually start from the music.
Right.
So I listen to the music and I try to put words on the music.
Right.
And sometimes I just mumble on top of the music, and then I come up with singular words. I just mumble. I don't know what I'm saying, but sometimes the right word would come out at the right time and it would make sense in that moment with the music. So I hear it and I'm like, okay, this word needs to be here and needs to be sung in this way. So I'm gonna write the whole sentence around that word because I want that word to be sung in that moment of the song. Something like that. It's something that I do a lot, and it helps me because I follow more the musicality of the word instead of I don't know, I want to write something that means that. I start with the musicality and then I'm like, I could write something that contains this word and that it means something related to the song. And I think that a lot of people write this way. I remember reading some articles about it. Maybe, I remember one article, maybe it was about songs by Backstreet Boys or something like that, a pop music, and the main songwriter behind that song, those songs, he would say that it was a lot more important how a word would sound compared to its meaning. And so he was saying that's why everyone can sing along to those songs, because the words are very pleasing to hear. And that's something that I think about a lot.
Yeah, that's when you write by ear and when you write by sound. So your musa ispiratrice, we could say in Italian, is the sound and not the word. And so you start out with sounds. And so if you can combine, the meaning that
The
you
best
want.
moment is when like the sound feels perfect and the meaning is there as well.
Wow.
And you're like, okay, this was written in the stars. You know what I mean?
Oh my God. You pictured it perfectly, man. I felt right there in that moment with the whole
That's the beauty.
constellation.
That's my main passion in life, writing music. And when you have those moments, it's like, sometimes you get frustrated because you work on a song for days and you cannot find it. I'm a perfectionist, especially in that field. So when you try and try and try, and then you get frustrated, you hate what you're doing, and then you find the right combination of meaning and words and melody, and you're like, oh, it was worth it.
Yeah.
This moment was worth all the
All the desperation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, amazing. Now that you said that, you got me thinking, I was going to ask you a question at the beginning of this interview. And I was going to ask you if there's a particular song that hit you the hardest. But at this point, I'm thinking maybe as a songwriter, one of your favorite songs or one song that really hit you personally is probably a song that you wrote. Or maybe a song that you listen to. I'm generally curious to know which one of the two that is. So in general, among your songs and the song that you listen to, your sources of inspiration, what was the song that hit you the hardest, the one with the perfect meaning and sound, now that we can put it this way, and you particularly like?
Okay, I have so many because I listen to a lot of music, some of them for enjoyment, and
Yeah.
some of them for inspiration. And like my favorite genre of music is rock and metal.
Right.
And so my favorite band is Bring Me the Horizon, and I saw them a few times. I saw their live shows. Even last time I saw them, I was in London, so it was a really cool experience in general. So I could say some of their lyrics really hit me hard. I'm thinking about a song in particular. It's called Teardrops, and the end of the chorus has this line that I really like, and it's, "The emptiness is heavier than you think." You like that?
Oh my God.
It's cool because the emptiness is il vuoto.
Yeah.
It should be, since it's
Empty.
come è un vuoto, should be leggero,
Exactly.
but it's heavier than you think, è più pesante perché parla della sensazione ovviamente che ti crea il vuoto.
That's amazing.
It's really cool. That's what I like about lyrics. And yeah, I can go on with other examples if you want.
Yeah, give me a couple of them, of course.
I can say another one by Bring Me the Horizon, then I can talk about some of my lyrics.
Yeah, please do.
Another one is a little longer. It's from the song "Can You Feel My Heart,"
Mm-hmm.
and it goes like, "The higher I get, the lower I'll sink. I can't drown my demons, they know how to swim."
Wow.
Vogliamo tradurla?
Yeah, definitely.
So, the higher I get, the lower I'll sink. Higher can be, può essere sia più in alto vado, ma anche più sotto effetto di qualcosa sono. To be high on something significa essere sotto l'effetto di qualche droga, per esempio.
Sì.
So the higher I get, the lower I'll sink. Più in alto vado o più sotto effetto sono, più affondo. Sink.
Sì, affonderò, più
basso
affonderò.
Esatto, una roba del
Più
genere.
basso affonderò, sì.
Quindi c'è questa high, low, this kind of
Sì,
juxtaposition.
ossimoro, sì, esatto.
And then the next part is I can't drown my demons, non posso affogare i miei
Sì.
demoni, they know how to swim,
Yeah.
perché sanno nuotare. And the cool thing about it is that the meaning is great, but also it rhymes, so it makes even more sense, and
Yeah.
it's very impactful.
It is. I love that.
Yeah, me too.
I'm going to listen to these songs right after we finish this interview
Yeah.
because now you got me curious, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna,
It's actually
gonna
great.
show them to you. And yeah, talking about my own songs,
Yeah.
I can also think about a couple of examples. I have a song. First of all, my band is called Ultra Violence. So
Right.
if you want to check it out, you can find it on Spotify or everywhere you listen to your favorite music.
We're going to put the link of your band
Oh, wow,
in the
thanks.
bio. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's something that I don't share a lot with my followers on my English page because I'm like, maybe, I don't know, they're here to learn English. So I don't know, I feel weird about talking to them about my band, go listen to my band. I don't know, I feel like I'm selling them something. But
Well, maybe if you try to expose yourself once in a while and
Yeah.
say, you know, always do this.
actually, there's a new song coming out on May 10th. And I'm probably gonna
Say something.
say something to my followers and be like, if you want to check it out, it's on
Of
Spotify.
course.
Yeah, so yeah, also because it's all connected to music, what I do. Also, I was thinking about being able to like have this kind of interviews. I did it also for that reason because with my band we used to travel a lot. We used to play shows in Europe. We also played a couple of shows in Japan, for example.
Wow,
So
that's a big band then.
but we're I don't know, we're fairly known.
Okay.
And so
Nice.
when I used to have to do interviews or things like that as well, talk with the fans after a show, and I wanted to be able to do it in English. So that's another reason why. First of all, songwriting, and then also the connection with the whole music business. I needed to know English.
Of course. Yeah, understandable. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about the lyrics? of
Going
that song?
back to one of my songs, it's called The End. And I wrote it because we used to we changed our style at some point. We used to play a really heavy kind of music because we liked that, and then we wanted to experiment a little bit, and we started playing something more commerciale, you would say in Italian, something more like Linkin Park, something like that. So in that moment, we got a lot of comments, negative comments,
Like
from the
criticism.
people. Yeah, criticism, because they were telling us that we sold out, but we just did it because we wanted to do it. We liked this
It was
new
a
style.
stylistic
Yeah,
decision.
we wanted to experience new things. And so I wrote this line in this song called The End, that it goes like, I will raise my throne with every stone you throw. And it's like referred to the comments, like the comments are the stones that you're throwing at me. With those, I will raise my throne. Quindi ergerò il mio trono
Yeah.
con le pietre che tirerà.
That you throw
You can
at me.
actually build a throne with stones.
It gives me the idea of a very, very big and strong throne, or at least a throne that is a beautiful throne on top of a rock that's built out of stones. That's what
Yeah.
the idea.
Yeah, like stones
idea
are
that I have in
supposed to
mind.
hurt you,
Yeah.
but you just use them to become stronger. That's the whole meaning behind it.
Yeah.
And also the words throne and throw,
Yeah.
they sound well together.
Yeah,
I will
very.
raise my throne with every stone you throw.
Yeah.
So it flows.
Yeah, it flows good.
Another one,
Perfectly.
last one, it's from a song, was really introspective, and as you said, it made me realize a lot about myself. I was stuck, I couldn't finish this song, and my dream about being a successful musician was feeling like torture. Like it was feeling, why am I putting myself through this? It's so heavy, it's so frustrating. I just wanted to make music, and now I hate it. So I wrote this bridge in this particular song called Good Enough that goes like this. I always have to think about the music, so I can't remember the lyrics.
Take your time.
I stare a hole through the ceiling because I can't find a reason that'll keep me from feeling like my dream is a prison. This is I'm happy you like that. Because I was feeling like my dream was a prison. Like I can't stop doing it, pursuing it, but at the same time it's killing me. So I was like, I imagine myself staring at the ceiling. I stare a hole through the ceiling, tipo faccio un buco nel soffitto per quanto lo
Per
guardo.
quanto lo fisso. Yeah.
Because I can't find a reason, perché non riesco a trovare una ragione that'll keep me from feeling, che mi trattenga dal sentirmi come se my dream was a prison, come se il mio sogno fosse una prigione. And that made me realize so much about myself. And when I found those words, I was like, okay, it's meant to be. It's
Those are the perfect words.
One of my favorite things I've ever written.
Yeah, when you know, you know. It's like deciding a title for an article or write the perfect rhyme. You know, that's how poets and artists must feel when they write songs and piece of literature, and that, like, you know, the perfect line and the perfect chapter and the perfect conclusion. That's something fascinating about all of this, about art in general, that just, you know, blows my mind every time I talk with one of you artists.
Absolutely.
I love that, genuinely. Okay, after this beautiful explanations of two of your songs, or better, a few lines of your songs, do you feel like you want to leave a message before actually concluding this podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. So lately I've been thinking a lot about this thing that I got, like I'm very happy with the things that I've got in life lately, with my band, with my English page, my daily, the things that I do on a daily basis. And I feel lucky that I have all these possibilities, even having this conversation with you, like this kind of interview, being on a podcast and all these things, and also helping people to learn English in a way. And I was thinking that if I haven't started, I don't know, playing music, or even started posting my videos online a little longer than 1 year ago, I would have never got here. So my message is, do the things that you like and do them in your way, and I mean, I'm sure 100% that you're gonna get somewhere if you do it with the right motivation and you're constant, and you're gonna get the interest of people. And the whole point is, if you're thinking about starting something new, if you had a project in the back of your head, just start it, because that's the most difficult step, and then everything
turn out
is gonna
fine.
follow. Yeah, that's my message. I hope I know it brings you luck.
Passion, action, noble intention, do it your way. Loris Castilla, Bruschetta Podcast.
Thank you.